Have you ever looked at a car driving down the street and thought, did an alien actually design this? Welcome to the wildest garage on the internet. Today we are counting down 10 of the most bizarre, mind-bending, and downright weird vintage cars that actually exist in real life. We are talking about literal flying fishbowls, terrestrial UFOs, and a vehicle so insane you will not believe it balances on just 2 wheels. Yes, stick around for number 1 because it completely defies the laws of physics. Which of these weird rides is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below right now, and do not forget to smash that subscribe button for more crazy automotive history. Let's get right into it. Kicking off our list at number 10 is a vehicle that perfectly captures the quirky spirit of the 1970s, the AMC Pacer. If you grew up watching classic comedies, you probably recognize this rolling greenhouse as the iconic Mirthmobile from the hit 1992 movie Wayne's World. But even before its Hollywood stardom, the Pacer was turning heads for all the wrong, or perhaps right, reasons. American Motors Corporation wanted to create a fuel-efficient compact car that felt extremely spacious on the inside. Their solution was to make a vehicle as wide as a massive luxury sedan but incredibly short in length. The result was a bizarre, jelly bean-like shape that quickly earned it the affectionate nickname, the Flying Fishbowl. What truly makes the AMC Pacer an absolute oddity of automotive engineering is the sheer volume of glass used in its construction. Nearly 40% of the car's surface area is covered in glass, giving the driver unparalleled visibility but also turning the cabin into a literal rolling sauna on a sunny day. Furthermore, AMC engineers included a brilliant but bizarre hidden feature: asymmetrical doors. The passenger side door was exactly 4 inches longer than the driver's side door. This was designed to make it easier for people to climb into the back seat while parked safely by the curb. It was a weirdly practical choice wrapped in a highly unconventional package. Despite its strange proportions and bubbly aesthetic, the Pacer gained a massive cult following and remains a beloved piece of pop culture history today. It was a bold swing by a smaller car company trying to reinvent the American daily driver during a massive fuel crisis. While it may look tame compared to some of the absolute monsters coming up on this list, it set the stage for thinking completely outside the traditional box. But if you think a wide fishbowl is weird, just wait until you see what happens when a car company tries to blend a sports car with a chunky SUV in the 1990s. Coming in at number 9 is a vehicle suffering from the ultimate automotive identity crisis, the Suzuki X90. Released in the mid-1990s, this bizarre little machine looks like someone took a rugged off-road SUV, chopped off the back half, and tried to glue on the trunk of a sporty 2-seater coupe. Suzuki wanted to create a fun, youth-oriented lifestyle vehicle, but what they actually built left consumers utterly confused. Was it a sports car, a compact truck, or an off-roader? Nobody really knew, and its bubbly, cartoonish styling only added to the sheer bewilderment of anyone who saw it driving down the street. One of the most defining and strange features of the X90 was its standard T-top roof, a feature usually reserved for cool muscle cars or sleek sports coupes. You could pop off the glass panels and cruise in the open air, all while sitting high up on a truck-like suspension with available 4-wheel drive. Despite its rugged underpinnings inherited from the Suzuki Sidekick, the X90 only had 2 seats and barely enough trunk space to hold a weekend's worth of groceries. It notoriously failed to catch on with the public because it lacked the practicality expected from a utility vehicle. However, the Suzuki X90 did find an incredibly unique second life in the world of guerrilla marketing. If you lived in a major city during the late 90s or early 2000s, you probably saw these quirky cars painted silver and blue, driving around with a massive oversized can of Red Bull energy drink strapped to the back. Yes, before Mini Coopers took over the promotional fleet, this bizarre vehicle was the original promotional tool for the energy drink giant. Speaking of quirky and impractical vehicles, our next bizarre ride literally took design inspiration from a slow-moving garden mollusk. Sliding into the number 8 spot is the Nissan S-Cargo, a commercial van from 1989 that takes the concept of literal vehicle naming to a hilarious extreme. Created during the peak of Japan's economic bubble, Nissan launched a special series featuring retro-styled limited production vehicles. The S-Cargo was their take on a small delivery van, and the designers clearly had a massive sense of humor. The name is a brilliant double entendre. It stands for small cargo, but when spoken aloud, it sounds exactly like escargot, the French word for snail. They literally designed it to look like a rolling snail. Everything about the S-Cargo's exterior screams quirky and unusual. It features an incredibly tall arched roofline that mimics a snail shell, paired with a flat sloping front end and adorable protruding bug-eye headlights resembling a snail's antennas. The massive side windows are strangely shaped, and the overall proportions look like something ripped straight out of a whimsical children's cartoon. Inside, the weirdness continues with a centrally mounted speedometer looking like a vintage wall clock, a tiny two-spoke steering wheel, and a completely flat dashboard designed to act as a functional table for busy delivery drivers on the go. Despite its comical appearance, the Nissan S-Cargo was actually incredibly practical for small businesses like florists and bakeries in Tokyo, thanks to its high roof and easy-to-load cargo area. With only about 12,000 of these delightful snail vans ever produced for the Japanese market, they are incredibly rare and highly sought after by quirky car collectors around the world today. While the S-Cargo maximized its interior space with a tall roof, our next weird car took the concept of a tall and narrow cabin to a terrifying phone booth-like extreme. Get ready for a truly claustrophobic ride. At number 7, we present the Scooter car, a British microcar from 1957 that looks exactly like a motorized telephone booth. The origin story of this bizarre vehicle is just as weird as its appearance. Legend has it that the wife of a prominent railway locomotive manufacturer wanted a car that was easier to park than her bulky sports car. So, the engineers who normally built massive industrial trains decided to try making a microcar. They basically took a popular scooter engine, placed a seat over it, and built an incredibly tall, narrow fiberglass shell around the driver. The proportions of the scooter car are genuinely hilarious. It is significantly taller than it is wide, giving it a top-heavy, cartoonish appearance that makes you wonder how it does not instantly tip over when turning a corner. The driver sits straddling the engine in the center of the cabin, steering with traditional motorcycle handlebars instead of a normal steering wheel. Believe it or not, this tiny rolling phone booth actually claimed to seat 2 people, with a brave passenger squeezed awkwardly behind the driver in an incredibly cramped tandem configuration. It looked like a toy escaped onto public roads. Powering this strange fiberglass bubble was a tiny engine that pushed the scooter car to a terrifying top speed of roughly 50 miles per hour. Driving one at that speed while sitting that high up in such a narrow vehicle was often described as an adrenaline-pumping near-death experience. Only about 1,000 scooter cars were ever built, making them an incredibly rare oddity of post-war British motoring. If you thought driving a phone booth was an adventure, wait until you see an asymmetrical sports car that looks like it belongs to a comic book supervillain planning a massive heist. Cruising into the number 6 spot is the wildly imaginative 1960 Plymouth XNR, a concept car that completely threw the rulebook of symmetry out the window. Designed by the eccentric automotive designer Virgil Exner, this vehicle was Plymouth's radical attempt to answer the Chevrolet Corvette. But instead of a traditional sports car, Exner created something that looks like the ultimate getaway vehicle for a comic book villain. The most mind-boggling feature of the XNR is its deliberate asymmetry. The driver's side and the passenger's side look completely different, a bold design choice almost never seen in automotive history. The entire design of the XNR is heavily focused on the driver, treating the passenger as a mere afterthought. On the driver's side, a massive sweeping headrest fairing rises up behind the seat and continues all the way down the rear deck lid to form a gigantic tail fin. To emphasize this unbalanced look, the driver's side hood features a large asymmetrical hood scoop. Meanwhile, the passenger seat is positioned lower and can be completely covered by a metal tonneau cover, effectively turning the car into a single-seat futuristic land speed racer when you are driving solo down the highway Underneath all that asymmetrical madness, the XNR was fully functional. It was powered by a modified engine pushing around 250 horsepower, capable of hitting a top speed of 150 miles per hour. After its show car duties were over, the XNR had a wild history. It ended up in the Middle East, miraculously survived a civil war hidden in an underground garage, and was eventually fully restored. From asymmetrical madness, we move to our next bizarre masterpiece, which looks less like a car and more like a legendary superhero's personal aerodynamic flying weapon. At number 5 is a jaw-dropping marvel of Italian design, the 1954 Alfa Romeo BAT 7. This is where automotive engineering meets high art. The BAT in the name does not actually stand for the flying mammal, but rather Berlinetta Aerodynamica Technica. This car was the second in a series of 3 extreme concept vehicles designed with the sole purpose of achieving the lowest aerodynamic drag coefficient possible. But let's be entirely honest here. With its swooping lines, hidden wheels, and menacing design, this car looks exactly like a vintage Batmobile built for Bruce Wayne himself. Before we dive deeper into the insane aerodynamics, I want to play a quick game. This car is an ultra-rare masterpiece. Take a guess in the comments right now. How many millions of dollars do you think the Alfa Romeo BAT Trio sold for at a recent auction? Pause the video and drop your guess. The most striking visual features of the BAT 7 are undoubtedly its massive, wildly curved rear tail fins. These dramatically curve inward towards the center of the car, looking like giant bat wings folding in, flawlessly guiding the airflow over the back. Every single detail of the BAT 7, from the heavily shrouded front nose to the teardrop-shaped glass canopy, was optimized to cut through the air like a knife. The result was an unbelievable aerodynamic drag coefficient of 0.19, putting most modern supercars to absolute shame. Oh, and for those guessing the price, the trio of BAT cars sold together at an auction for a staggering $14.8 million. $14 million is a lot of money, but our next vehicle is priceless if you ever played with Hot Wheels as a kid. Rolling in at number 4 is the legendary 1967 Dodge Deora, a highly customized futuristic pickup truck that defied all logic and standard safety regulations. If this bizarre wedge-shaped vehicle looks incredibly familiar to you, there is a very good reason for that. When Mattel launched their original lineup of 16 Hot Wheels die-cast toy cars in 1968, the Dodge Deora was one of the most popular models. Millions of kids grew up racing this exact weird truck across their living room floors. But the real full-size Deora is even stranger than the tiny metal toy. Built by the famous customizing brothers Mike and Larry Alexander, the Deora was based on a mundane Dodge forward-control pickup truck. The brothers chopped, sliced, and completely modified the body to create a sleek, ultra-low profile that looked like a spaceship cargo hauler. But the absolute weirdest and most mind-boggling feature of the Deora is how you actually get inside it. There are absolutely no side doors on this vehicle. Instead, the entire front windshield and nose sections swing open like a giant clamshell to reveal the futuristic interior cabin hiding directly behind the front glass. To enter, you have to lift the front glass up, swing the lower metal section open, and physically step through the front of the truck right over the steering wheel to sit down. It is a ridiculously complicated and dangerous way to enter a vehicle, but it looks unbelievably cool. Once inside, the driver steers using a wildly modified steering wheel. The Dodge Deora represents a golden era of custom car building where pure imagination completely overruled practicality. If climbing through a windshield seems weird, wait until you see a terrestrial flying saucer with a bubble dome. Coming in at number 3 is a vehicle that genuinely looks like a prop stolen directly from the set of a futuristic sci-fi cartoon, the 1964 Peel Trident. Manufactured on the tiny Isle of Man, the Trident was designed as a futuristic microcar for the bustling city commuter. The company was already famous for creating the Peel P50, widely recognized as the smallest production car in the world. But for their follow-up, they decided to ditch the traditional car shape entirely and build what can only be described as a terrestrial flying saucer resting on 3 tiny wheels. The defining feature of the Peel Trident is its massive clear plexiglass bubble dome that serves as the roof, windshield, and doors all rolled into one. To get inside, you unlatch the entire top half of the car and flip it forward, exposing the incredibly cramped two-seat interior. Sitting inside the Trident feels exactly like sitting inside a life-sized gumball machine. While the bubble dome offered incredible visibility, it had one massive flaw. It acted as a giant magnifying glass for the sun. Driving it on a hot day turned the driver into a slow-roasted human greenhouse. Underneath its retro-futuristic shell, the Trident was powered by a microscopic 49 cubic centimeter moped engine, giving it a top speed of roughly 28 miles per hour. It was incredibly loud, aggressively slow, and terrified anyone brave enough to drive it alongside normal-sized traffic. Despite its flaws, the Peel Trident remains a beloved, quirky piece of automotive history, representing an optimistic space-age vision of the future. A bubble car is undeniably futuristic, but our runner-up is a multi-million-dollar Italian hypercar that literally looks like a UFO gliding mere inches above the hot summer asphalt. Taking the silver medal at number 2 is perhaps the most extreme and radical concept car ever to wear the legendary prancing horse badge, the 1970 Ferrari 512S Modulo. Unveiled at the Geneva Motor Show, this incredibly bizarre machine left audiences utterly speechless. Designed at the Pininfarina design house, the Modulo looks absolutely nothing like a traditional Ferrari. Instead, it looks exactly like an unidentified flying object that crash-landed onto a racetrack. The car is so unimaginably low to the ground, standing at exactly 36.8 inches tall, that it appears to be hovering. Before we talk about how you get into this spaceship, let's play our guessing game one more time. This is a one-off Ferrari prototype with a massive V12 engine. Take a wild guess in the comments. If this UFO were sold today, how many millions do you think it would fetch? Drop your number down below. Now back to the weirdness. The Modulo has no conventional doors or windows, and its wheels are almost entirely hidden by the sleek bodywork. To enter the cockpit, the entire roof, windshield, and side windows slide dramatically forward on special mechanical rails. This forces the driver to awkwardly step over the side pods and slide down into the aggressively reclined seats. Everything about the Modulo was meant to shock the world. It featured 24 bizarrely placed holes on the engine cover to show off the roaring 5-liter racing engine sitting right behind the driver's head. It is a breathtaking piece of wedge-era design art, and for those guessing its value, experts value this one-of-a-kind UFO at an easy $20 to $30 million. We have seen UFOs, but nothing can prepare you for a car that completely defies gravity. And finally, the moment you have been waiting for. At number 1, we have a vehicle so bizarre, so conceptually insane that it literally defies the laws of physics, the 1961 Ford Gyron. When you look at a car, you naturally expect it to have 4 wheels, or maybe 3 if it is a quirky microcar. But the Ford designers in the early 60s looked at the future and said, 4 wheels are boring, let's build a car that balances on just 2 wheels. The Ford Gyron is a massive, incredibly long, sleek, futuristic automobile resembling a motorcycle. So, how on earth does a heavy enclosed car not immediately tip over and crash into the pavement? The answer lies in the name: gyroscopes. The Gyron was designed to utilize a massive, complex internal gyroscope system that would spin at high speeds. This created enough centripetal force to keep the vehicle perfectly upright, even when sitting completely still at a red light. To prevent the car from falling over when the engine was turned off, 2 small retractable outrigger legs would automatically deploy from the sides, much like the kickstand on a bicycle or an airplane's landing gear. Visually, the Ford Gyron was a masterpiece of the jet age era. Shaped like a sleek silver Delta Wing fighter jet, it featured a massive glass bubble canopy, heavy chrome rocket thruster detailing in the back, and a cockpit controlled by a central steering dial instead of a conventional wheel. While the Gyron never made it into mass production due to the immense cost and complexity of the gyroscopic technology, It stands today as the absolute pinnacle of weird, audacious, and unimaginably cool automotive design. It is the ultimate proof that car designers used to dream without absolutely any limits. From the flying fishbowl AMC Pacer to the gravity-defying two-wheeled Ford Gyron, automotive history is filled with brilliant mad scientists. These 10 weird vintage cars prove that sometimes throwing the rulebook out the window creates absolute magic on the road. Which of these bizarre machines would you actually want to park in your driveway? Let me know your absolute favorite down in the comments right now. If you enjoyed this crazy car countdown, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more mind-blowing history. Thank you for watching and see you next time.